Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot, and welcome to our first look at December. So it's kind of hard to believe that we're already into the last month of the year, but here we are. And so we're going to take a look at what's happening with this soulmate situation and what you can really expect, or more or less what you need to know as we're looking into the month of December. So it will be a general reading for this collective. So if it resonates with you, won't resonate with everybody, shouldn't resonate with everybody, but if it does resonate with you, maybe take a look at some of the other messages or even think about subscribing. We're going to go ahead and I think start with this. We're going to go ahead and start with the energetic and emotional backdrop throughout this back half, or I'm sorry, that not the back half of December, but the month of December, knowing that at about the halfway mark, we'll take a look and kind of say, okay, given what's changed, given what shifts have taken place, because they always seem to by the end of or by the middle of the month, we always kind of want to look back into it. We'll take a look at it there too, but let's go ahead and get that first look at December and what that energy is looking like. So I see that Knight of Cups in reverse. That's fear around communication. This is that's kind of, it's fear around it, but not necessarily not doing it. Yeah. King of Cups. Okay. That speaks to that kind of up and down flow that we've seen, or increase and decrease in flow that we've seen of emotion for this person over the last few weeks, last few months. We've noticed that your person has had this ability to kind of increase their capacity, but it's been very gradual. So it may not look like much of an increase, may not feel like much of an increase until you really dig into the energy, because they have a tendency to get flooded and then retract. And then when they come back, they kind of expand, but it's just a little bit more. So it's not a ton of expansion. I see that that potential for expansion exists there. We also have a Three of Cups. This is, okay, so when I said fear of communication was coming out with this Knight of Cups, I didn't say no communication, and this kind of is why. I feel like there is a chance for the two of you to, if you haven't been in communication, to have a conversation, possibly even make it out to lunch or dinner or out for a couple of drinks here. Be aware though, even though you've got expansion with this person's ability to manage their emotions, it's not a large amount, and it tends not to be. So I wouldn't expect too much, but there's still an energy of being able to at least check in, get together, and just kind of say, all right, I wanted to see where things were. It'll leave both of you with a lot to think about if you're able to make that communication. And I know not everyone will. There will be some of your divine masculines will be unable to get past this fear of communication, but I was absolutely, I felt like instructed not to say no communication when I saw fear of communication. So we see a bit of a hold up with the Star, and I'm just going to go with, it feels like these top cards need to be read first. Then we'll see if there's anything else that needs to go in there. So we've got this Page of Cups, talks about communication being on the menu. So they're ready to start crafting a communication to you, but they could just as easily get to the point of sending it and say, that this fear is kind of it's kind of creeping in too much. We have the Star card here that says they are actually making some progress within themselves right now, but there's still a fair amount of delay energy that sits in there. So again, with I wouldn't expect anything to materialize really quickly. And then we have Temperance, which is showing that lack of balance, or it's really much more of a perception of a lack of balance. And I'll just go ahead and clean up the ones we're not going to use. I see a perception of a lack of balance, and it's kind of feels like it's weighing on maybe both of you, definitely them. 10 of Cups, though, this one concerns me a little bit. It means, if I were to give an example, it means maybe you get out to lunch or out to have a couple drinks or whatever it is, and then that's where all of a sudden they hit that limit. Like while they're out there with you, they realize, oh no, I'm not actually capable of opening up the way that I thought I was going to, and you might see them kind of shut down in the middle of the conversation. So watch for that if you're able to get into the communication with them, although as we know, it may be tough for them to actually execute on that. There's a lot of fear here, which is not necessarily new, not new for the readings that we see, not new for this collective, but it's it just makes me sad to see it, because I see also that they're making some progress. And you just, when you see progress, kind of I wish that, that they would be ready to come back and have a little bit more capacity and feel a little bit more open and willing to be vulnerable. And what I see here is still a lot of fear around that. And I understand that it really does make sense that they're not just going to snap out of it and be suddenly able to have the type of communication and relationship that you're necessarily looking for. This is something that they're going to have to grow into. So we have a Knight of Pentacles in the reverse, which really just smacks of inconsistency. Okay, and that's it for this one. Sometimes I'm going to take the top one. Sometimes I'll take more than that, and I never know until I see them. But the Knight of Pentacles, it really does have that sense of inconsistency and not knowing whether they'll be able to go through with it. So even after they hit send, they're still in danger of not showing up and standing you up at lunch, or having something suddenly come up that makes them have to cancel or something like that. It's got that feel to it. Still a lot of healing that needs to be done with the Four of Swords here in the reverse. But with the Page of Wands, there is a sense of, this is a good feeling. If you're in favor of getting together and finding reconciliation, which I know many of you are, this Page of Wands does work in that direction. It works in the direction of finding reconciliation. However, it also is very much the fear that they live in is compounded by the energy like that we see from the Star card, which is there's a delay in that. They're trying to move forward, but they're very inconsistent about it. They're not able to quite do that, and it's partially because of the things that they're working through. So that ancient pain that we sometimes talk about here on this channel. Ten of Swords in the reverse talks about the fact that your inclusion in their life, your impact on their life has to do with that ancient pain, them working through it. And I actually see a lot of progress in that area. That's one of the places that we've seen progress, but unfortunately for the relationship, but not in general. So we see progress, and that's very positive. But if you're looking for a relationship to become more stable more quickly, then it's frustrating because there's still so much of the healing that needs to happen, and a lot of fear that just is still in the mix. That's just kind of still living in the situation. Let's see, I think there's maybe another card that needs to come out for this. Aha, we've got the Tower. So this is during the month of November, that feeling of, and I don't know that it wouldn't already have started, maybe with that full moon that we had a little while ago. And I don't know that it also wouldn't go beyond December. We'll take a look as we get farther into the month. It's always best to look fairly close. So we'll look farther into, when we get farther into the month, we'll start looking into and allowing that energy of next year to start coming in. And of course, we'll do a reading at some point where we really look at that, but we'll get a little closer to it first. What we see for the month of December, though, and maybe sprouting out the sides a little bit, getting into November and January, is this Tower energy, though. This is like a significant emotional reset. It's not an easy thing for them to live with, and it is a them thing. So you may also have a Tower happening, but I feel like if you are, it's not necessarily rewriting things for you in a way that changes a ton. I feel like for them, though, it is, and it's about those values that they've been working on. So let's go ahead and look into what you need to know as you're navigating this month of December. This is interesting because we've seen kind of a lot of shift in the energy, but not a ton of shift in their ability to be vulnerable. And I'm wondering if any of that changes. In this energy here, it looks like it tries to change, but I don't know how much success there is in that. So we have the Chariot. That's a sense of moving forward. moving. If toward you is forward, then moving toward you. Now they may be on, so this is somebody who's kind of doing switchbacks, and it's all about their healing. So if the next step is in your direction, then this is a valiant next step in your direction. But it's not definite that that's the case, because their healing may require them to take a step that happens not to be in your direction. I don't get the sense that it's because you are in your direction. I think it's more a matter of they must follow their healing path, and it is independent of your healing path, even though it is remarkably impacted by you and the energy around you. So we've got the Emperor, and this is a nice, balanced Emperor. This is someone who, at least in their own mind, is taking some time to get right with some things, to establish a little bit of balance. Let's see what else we've got. Yeah, Page of Swords. I'm liking the Page of Swords energy. This is, we've got some uncertainty and some fear over here, but also a tendency to want to move forward. This Page of Swords is more of that willingness to move forward. And this is where it's this kind of energy that has you getting a communication from them that is almost not well thought out. Like it happens quickly and a little bit unexpected on both sides. And then here with the Four of Wands in the reverse, part of the reason that you might get that communication is because it looks like they're making some interesting decisions in their household. So when that Ten of Cups came out in the reverse, I actually felt Ten of Pentacles energy coming off of it initially, and that was kind of part of my reaction when it came out. And the Ten of Pentacles energy, what I was feeling was decisions being made around the household, not necessarily in reverse, not necessarily poor decisions or decisions that would impact them in a way that they don't especially like. But I do get the sense that, and we saw this in some previous readings also, they may be making some decisions that change the face of their household or their overall living situation. It could just be walking away from a job. So it doesn't have to be physically where they live, but it's something in their living environment, which would include their job or the work that they do, whether it's volunteer work or not. Everyone has a formal job, but everyone kind of has that energy going on, and so there's something here that makes a change. They make a decision that creates a change and throws some of the stability off, which is why you're more likely to receive that communication. Just remember that maybe not expect a ton from that, especially because they've got that Knight of Pentacles inconsistent energy. Not even going to feel consistent to them. Two of Pentacles, so it matches with that Temperance in the reverse, where it's kind of balance. It's balance that isn't there yet, but they are striving for it. This is more that day-to-day balance. But again, feels like they're striving for it. What I get out of this, though, and that I don't necessarily feel from the Temperance card, but this is going to be more visible balance. It's also, it feels a little bit more like it is being more real, and not just with themselves, but it's almost like if they have been the sort of person who, from their ego standpoint, needs to be perceived a certain way, the way that they are holding on to that perception is maybe changing a little bit. So if you have someone who has a particularly narcissistic tendency, that's a big deal. Because a lot of times, narcissists or people with narcissistic tendencies, which could not always be narcissists, but the point is, if they have those tendencies, they often are very concerned with what their ego feels, how it egoistic endeavors. Okay. And this is somebody that I see, this is a step toward vulnerability. It is not vulnerability itself necessarily. However, it is a step in the right direction, and it's about getting that ego out of the way. So that's kind of a big deal. There's something that happens during the month of December that helps them to move in that direction. They recognize with the Seven of Pentacles in the reverse, there's something that they haven't invested in within themselves that they feel they need to. But they aren't necessarily in a place yet where they can do it. They're kind of, I don't get, okay, so they just turn around and immediately make that investment and start solving whatever is wrong. But I think because it's too fragmented, and maybe they're a little too fragmented, and that's too much to ask all in one step. It'll take them a little bit of time, but they are going to get there. And here, I love this because it looks like, yeah, they are going to get there. With the Artist card, this is manifestation, but it's manifestation based on what's possible and not necessarily what is probable. not putting a ton of their own expectations on it. It's got a wide open sort of feeling to it that goes with this Four of Wands in reverse. So they've removed some stability from their lives, and this is where it looks like they're leaning into it a little bit. So here's a fearful person who's allowing a tower to happen, and maybe they don't have a whole lot of control over that tower happening, but for them to be leaning into the change is a big deal. That actually tells of a lot of healing that has already taken place. Now, you got to kind of watch out, because part of it is fueled by that ego, okay? So with the King of Pentacles, it's not usually a card of huge ego. I usually think of that more as like an unbalanced King of Wands kind of energy. But with the King of Pentacles here, I'm getting a little bit of it. I'm getting they are really trying to do the right thing by themselves. They're trying to do right by themselves from an egoistic standpoint, but they don't exactly know how in some cases. So they feel justified in what they're doing in a lot of these situations, but they're still, you know, we've seen that that tendency for them to have a little bit more of an awareness of what's going on as time passes. They are aware, their gut is kicking in. They're aware that something needs to be adjusted, but not necessarily aware of how to adjust it, or not even necessarily sure what it is that they need to change. And okay, so that's that with this one. Let's see what else. Interesting energy coming out for December. There's a lot could happen here, and it looks like a lot does. So this is partnership. Reminds me of this Three of Cups up here, where you are invited out to lunch, invited out for drinks, whatever that ends up being. With this Two of Cups, it's what comes of it. This is the potential for some partnership, not necessarily out and out reconciliation, okay? Because there's got to be, and you guys that have been with me for a while, you will have heard this one before. You're probably tired of hearing it, but there's a need for reconciliation within either of you individual or both of you individually, and then you come together for that reconciliation between the two of you, and that puts you on the path to reunion if that's the direction you want to go. So you could get out to lunch and say, all right, so we're getting put on the path for reconciliation, and it's that mutual reconciliation, but not necessarily the reunion. And it can't quite be a full reconciliation, because there is reconciliation within the two of you that still needs to occur. There is that healing that still needs to occur. But it's got to, I mean, you know, you're taking baby steps to move toward it. It looks like some of those steps happen. Ace of Pentacles. New door opening. It's a new door opening, but it's with a super duper slow energy. And so again, this is not necessarily something that happens quickly, and it may not happen all in one day, or, you know, it's unlikely to happen all in one day, although you're also likely to see some shifts if you're able to get together. Now, I will readily admit, I'm not trying to tell everybody, hey, you're definitely going to get communication and you're going to go out to lunch. Everything's going to be great. Like, I understand people are in different places on the timeline, and there will be some of you who do not receive communication. I do not expect to receive communication. You know, this, I will be quite honest, this energy came out in yesterday's meditation for me, and I mentioned it. So this fits in with a comment that somebody made on the thank you YouTube video, and you were asking about what my significant other thinks about me reading tarot cards. And so first off, I will say I am fully supported here. But I will also say my significant other knows everything about my situation with my person, and there was never any foul play or anything like that. But it's still one of those things that could potentially kind of make them feel a little bit funky, except for he also has this type of situation. Now, his is purely platonic, mine is purely platonic, but it wouldn't always have to be. It just is, because we are committed to one another, and that's the way that works. However, after I came out of my meditation yesterday, I got the question, so it felt weird to be in the same room with you while you were on that meditation, kind of what came out, and it was, I think there's something changing here. I think there's something shifting. I'm not exactly sure what that opening door looks like, but I feel like this is something that shifts, and I don't know how close to it. It feels like it's between moons, okay? So before that new moon kind of really comes out, I think that's on the 12th of December. So that's almost to that mid-month mark, but I feel like there's something that shifts kind of even before that. I didn't get as far as to say, hey, I think I'm gonna get invited out to lunch or whatever. I'm not even anticipating that. And like I said, I'm probably not gonna hear from my person. My person is so far back on that timeline that it's like I am part of this collective, but I am in no way my person is not very far along in the timeline. I don't hear from them very often. When you guys do, I often don't. But the rest of the energy matches, and so my transition along does match with the timeline. It does match a little bit more with what we see. So when I see communication come out, I pretty much always know it's not likely to apply to me, but I know better than to put any expectations on it, because that's really that's a limiter. So I don't anticipate that everyone will hear from their person. I think there will be others out there that are kind of like me that, you probably won't hear from them. They're not far enough along. They're not close enough to reconciliation in some cases, but some of them are. And you're definitely going to see some movement in those ones that are, and the communication looks good. But again, baby steps, probably still going to take a little while to kind of get through it. So with the Knight of Swords here in the reverse, here's where we start to see that fear again. But it's a weird thing that happens. We've seen it before. This is where they run away and then they turn around to make sure you're still following them or still paying attention to them. They get a little bit unnerved if they find out that you're not still paying attention. But sometimes that will draw them in a little bit more. The fact that you're not giving them any attention, the fact that you're not putting energy in their direction, or that you're focused on something maybe in addition to them, or focused on something maybe a little bit more that has a tendency to kind of bring them back your direction. So hyper focus on your person is likely to push them away in this energy. Particularly with this Knight of Swords and with this Ten of Wands. I'm sitting here saying that, and it really matches with this Ten of Wands as well. It's unlikely that you're going to be able to bring somebody in by just wishing for them to show up. However, you making the best out of the energy that you have to offer, focusing on what's healthy for you to focus on, which of course will be different for every person and every situation, that is more likely to change things. And you can feel that shift. So if you're like me, and I know I don't usually talk about myself, so here I'm putting it out there a little bit. When you have that energy and you can feel it, even in a person that does not communicate with you at all, like my person does not communicate with me at all. I haven't seen them in years. The energy is very much still there, and I can feel when I focus elsewhere, it pulls them to me. Now, it doesn't pull them enough to where they're necessarily able to get there and make the communication, but I am pretty sure. So there's been communication once in those years, and I felt it long before they hit the send button. I'll just say that. So sometimes you hear it, you feel it happening, and you also know might take them a little bit longer. But for those of you where they are able to hit that send button and get together, there is a hint of vulnerability kind of coming out over here, or movement in that direction. But just recognize that Star card is pretty significant. It's the holdup. It's what's keeping them back, but it also has a lot to do with the healing they have yet to do. If they're not ready yet, if they're trying to exert too much control over the situation and they're still too frustrated that they can't get you out of their mind, then that may be an area of focus for them. And then we have hiding, we have running away, but we also have, let me just make sure they're still watching. Let me make sure they're still chasing or thinking about me, yeah, unfinished business. So it's not just that there's unfinished business, it's the recognition of that fact. The recognition that there is unfinished business and something that kind of can't be ignored. We have the Queen of Swords, so this feels like a Queen of Swords with a tower stuck in it. This is you, though. It's like you saying, even if this person does communicate with me, I have boundaries now that I need to go ahead and enforce. This is highly recommended for you to have those boundaries, to go ahead and reinforce those. Go ahead and say, no, this is the right thing for me to do. Think about it. Make sure that those boundaries are in the right place, but actually this is you honoring yourself with that. It's not a rash decision, kind of Queen of Swords. That's not what I'm feeling about it. It's much more making things right. Making things right by yourself. So let's see. And right by you, right by yourself is not necessarily going to be wrong for other people or anything like that. It's just a matter of making sure that you are honoring yourself and doing what is needed for you. So let's look into where your focus ought to be for the month of December, given especially what we've got on this table. But I would expand that and just say, what is your focus? What should you be focused on this December? Let's see. We've got Knight of Swords. This is unleashing your those places where you might hold yourself back a little bit and say, well, I'd kind of like to do something, but nah, maybe I won't. Like, get out of your own way. This is the get out of your own way kind of card, and I love it. I love the way this one feels, because it doesn't feel like it's just celebrating yourself. It doesn't shut anybody else's energy down. I once had a friend that he was just a very vulnerable, very communicative sort of guy. And now he's in this wonderful, perfect marriage with someone who compliments him very, very well. And he's still kind of this person. But I remember being excited by something he said one time. He was talking about, I watched him get shut down by somebody because he said something nice about himself. Okay. And it wasn't even like an arrogant toot your own horn sort of situation. This person just clearly wanted to shut somebody down. And so they were shutting him down, and he turned to them and said, the fact that I like this thing about myself does not mean that I would diminish it in you or anyone else. And I just thought it was really well said. This is that energy. Go ahead and love it in yourself. It doesn't diminish it in anyone else. It doesn't compare. It doesn't mean you're better. It just means you appreciate something about yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. So we've got the Eight of Cups in the reverse. This is about you're going to have some realizations. So maybe it's time for you to think very deeply and carefully and all by yourself. This is not necessarily a shared thing. You're welcome to tell me, but just know I'm not sharing it with anybody either. This is a situation where you may recognize that you need to do a little bit more for yourself to put yourself in the direction of happiness. This is going on that quest, that search for what constitutes your 9 cups or your wish fulfillment. And you may feel a little bit concerned about your ability to do that with the Strength card there in the reverse. Strength in the reverse simply means that fear is winning out. So when you feel like fear is winning out, I get the sense that being aware of that is going to be part of the solution, and that your best bet is going to be to just sit with it and make sure you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. All right, and let's see what else wants to come out for that. Oh, we got a couple of things here. And, I get in here, I swear the room is cold, and then I start doing a reading for you and I'm burning up. So I'm going to pull this sweater off again. But we've got the 9 of Swords on the upright and the Hermit in the reverse. Okay, so 9 of Swords in the upright goes along with this fear winning out. Here's how you're going to know. This is how you're going to know that fear is kind of trying to take over your bliss and your happiness and kind of overpower you a little bit. It's going to come in the form of anxiety. It's the stuff that keeps you up at night. This is that sort of sense. And you may be the sort of person where you don't usually let very much interact or interfere with your sleep. Here's where it does. So when you see that, when you start to see a lot of doubt coming out, and it's like you get in there and you're like, from an intellectual standpoint, it really doesn't make as much sense to have that doubt. Watch for that. When that happens and you're talking yourself into being doubtful and anxious, that's where you're going to want to take a step back, because you should be able to talk yourself out of it as easily as you can talk yourself into it. So just go ahead and use that. I guess that would be cognitive therapy. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm aware of how behavioral and cognitive therapy can impact things. And this would be more of the cognitive piece on your side, because you would be thinking your way through something. We've got the Hermit card in the reverse. Hermit card in the reverse tells us there is something here that you need to do some more thinking on. So in one of our recent readings, we talked about your person having gone into their thinking cave a little bit, but needing to go in more deeply. This is the same for you. This is you going in a little bit more deeply during the month of December and just kind of giving yourself some opportunity to truly get in there and see what you're made of. You've got some advice that's coming your way, and for some reason you haven't been taking it, probably because it is uncomfortable advice. It's okay to hit the reset on that and to determine maybe I do want to kind of hold on to this advice for later and then try and work it in. While you're maybe in that thinking cave is a great time to do it. But you've got the Six of Wands here that says new information will continue to come. So the Six of Wands is about victory after a long battle when it's in the upright. When it's in the reverse, sometimes it means the battle's not over yet. And that's kind of what this is. It's not so much, hey, you're not going to win. It's more that you're still very much in the process of it. So even though you're going to be working through some things to find some additional wisdom here, just know that there's more information coming. You don't have the whole picture yet. That's almost always true, but it's really going to strike you. Okay, Queen of Wands. This feels a little bit like depression, and coupled with this Queen of Pentacles that just came out here, Page of Pentacles and the Moon, it's a depression that is temporary, short-lived, and not super well, like it's based on perceptions that are going to go away. So it's that thing where something's keeping you up at night and you are having your fear is winning out over your strength with this. You'll find that it feels wrong. Something doesn't feel right and you don't feel like yourself. The good news is, again, this is temporary and you're going to be able to talk yourself into a better place or think yourself into a better place. This is very much something that you will have some control over, but you won't have all the information like I was saying. That's okay. You are very adept, many of you, at making decisions with not all of the information. So this is kind of a chance for you to show that off for yourself, and not necessarily, like I said, showing it off for others, but showing it off for yourself. You get in there and really truly understand that truth. You also have a good recognition of what has worked for you and what hasn't, and what pain still kind of sits under the surface for you. You're going to get a sense of where the healing still needs to take place for you. Okay, what's this? Nine of Wands in the reverse. All right, I love this because as you're absorbing those Ace of Swords truths that we see come out in these readings so often, and you're able to take, here's pain that's happened in the past, but I'm now registering a little bit differently so I can recognize it for what it is, use it as part of the solution, but not have to fall to it. This truth, as it starts to come out, feels different than it ever has. So it's not necessarily new truth, but it's you looking at it and having it feel a little bit differently. Like once you've talked yourself out of whatever that anxiety is and this temporary glitch has gone away, you're going to start to recognize, here are all the places that I've improved. Here are all the places that I've changed. And also be able to incorporate these truths. So it sort of catapults you forward in your healing in a really nice way, but you don't get this unless you have gone through all the rest of this. So it's like you've earned this. This is going to be something very positive. So we're going to go into the extended, and as we do, you know, I think there's a lot for us to kind of look into. I almost just want to go deeper into this to say, well, what else has to happen here? Because you have a person who is, I think this tower is super significant. We may even just take this tower and ask what this is. I feel like I want to use this deck, so it may just be asking the question, but tell us a little bit more about this tower situation that this person is getting into in December, because it feels like there's a shift that happens as you get into that. It's got a tendency for them to try and make things right. And that's kind of significant, but they may still be, with that fear that they're having, they may still be trying to control it a little too much. But I'm curious about this tower. I'm curious about this Two of Cups, this partnership that starts to form anyway, this door that begins to open. So the progress that you're making, I want to see the progress that you're making in this relationship for you. So I think we'll look into that when we get into the extended, and of course about this tower, and see what else wants to come out for you. So if you would like to get into the extended with me, the link is down in the description for the video, and I would be happy to get into it a little bit farther with you there. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.